Today, in the passenger seat, we have a school teacher and community independent candidate for Hume, Penny Ackery. How you doing, Penny?
Very well, Daniel. Beautiful day for it today.
We're actually in Goulburn at the moment, and I'm really keen to talk to you about a few things. Keen to chat about climate change and renewable energy, electric vehicles. But I'm also keen to talk about this incredible independence movement that's happening across the country. And there's these community groups popping up everywhere, and there's one in Hume.
Yes, and it's a really active one. We've been active actually from about the beginning of 2020 when we started talking to the community about what they wanted from their leadership, what they wanted from their community, changed, preserved, made better. And from all that data, we put it together in a report. And the idea was to get an independent candidate at any level of government, really. So what we did then is there were four of us that actually said, well, we'll sort of present to a forum, a couple of community forums, and we did. And the people at those forums then chose from that selection of four of us who they wanted to be their representative, and it turned out to be me.
Wow.
So that's how I come to be the community independent representative, not someone that sort of played to join a party or anything like that. Just I'm from the community, I've lived in the community for around 30 years, I know the community pretty well, up and down, even though it's a large electorate, so definitely a community independent.
Yeah, fantastic. And you are a real person. You're a school teacher. You're not like another lawyer who's going to be in Parliament. And as you say, you've got deep roots into the community.
And up and down, I was also a teacher at Picton for many years as well. So even last weekend, going up to Thirlmere to meet and greet people up there, teachers were saying, "Oh, I taught with you, Penny," and yeah, that's right. And so it was really great to go up to that part of the community as well.
Fantastic. Excellent. Now, I'll just mention the reason that you're in the passenger seat is because you've hurt your arm and you're unable to drive. So you're actually going to help me with filming today, and we're gonna drive past some pretty spectacular wind turbines a bit later, which I'm really keen to talk about. But for now, I'm just going to get your help to help me film the fact that we are here at the Tesla charging station here in Goulburn, and I actually know that Angus Taylor's office is only a couple hundred meters from here, so we're actually going to start our trip out of Goulburn, and we're going to do a little drive-by of Angus's office to see how close he is to the charging station.
Absolutely, like if you had a long cord, he could charge his Tesla if he had one.
Yeah, he actually said last year that he would never drive an electric vehicle, and the excuse he gave is because he had to do long distances. But I've done 2,000 kilometers in 2 days in this vehicle, just to prove that it's possible. So I don't think Angus has any excuses anymore.
Especially when the kind of vehicle he has puts out a huge amount of emissions, whereas driving the same amount around an electorate in this car will make no emissions.
Yeah.
There's nothing, and we do know that the emissions from cars kill more people actually than car accidents do. So that's an astounding figure, and one we all need to think about.
Absolutely. All right, well, shall we get out there?
Sure thing.
All right. And the Tesla charging station's been there for a couple of years now.
Yeah, it's been there for several years. It may even have been the first one in Australia, and it was put there because the Goulburn group, which is a community-based group in wanting for renewable energies, decided that they would put in a bid for it, and so it was through their auspices that we actually ended up getting the Tesla charging station here, which has been a boon for lots of cafes around the place and for tourism in general in Goulburn, I believe.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been doing a lot of trips from Canberra to Sydney, and I always stop in Goulburn to charge, and I always stop in at a local cafe to grab a coffee and a bite to eat. So I'm sure a lot of other electric vehicle owners do the same.
Absolutely, we see a lot of them down there, on most days.
Now here we are. We're coming up now to Angus Taylor's office. It's literally only a couple hundred meters from the charging station. We're not going to go in there. I'm not sure if he's in today.
Unlikely, but you never know.
Never know. But he's pretty close, isn't he?
He's very close. Look, how long did it take us? Hardly a minute to drive.
Yeah.
There's our amazing cathedral,
Nice.
St Saviour's,
And we go right here.
and we're going to go right here.
Yeah, it's such a shame that we have an energy minister and a minister for emissions reduction who has been so negative, not only about electric vehicles but about renewable energy more broadly. At a time where Australia could be really seizing all these incredible opportunities, we have leadership that's really actually suppressing to the left, straight through.
Straight ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, that's right. And I mean, we're so ideally placed because we have a lot of wind generating power and even solar as well. But I mean, we have placed ideally in Goulburn to actually generate that electricity and get it out and about to the rest of the country. There's huge possibilities and opportunities for pumped hydro in small stations just to store the additional electricity that's being generated as well. So for Goulburn, never mind the rest of Hume as well, but there's huge job opportunities and really making it a really great hub for renewable energies. And that could be really not that hard to do. It just takes the effort and the initiative and sort of the wherewithal from the government to give the signal.
Yeah. A lot of people don't know how much energy these massive wind turbines produce, and I remember last year I saw a tweet from Simon Holmes-Court, who's really knows a lot about energy, and he said that based on the average daily driving per person, which is around 35 to 40 kilometres per day, that one of the really big wind turbines can actually generate enough energy to power around 20,000 electric vehicles. So just one big turbine is enough to power 20,000 EVs.
That's right. So it's great for the people that have the EVs. It's renewable energy, and it's a real win for our farmers out here. One of our farmers down in Collector Way has said publicly, and was at a forum that I hosted, that without the turbines or the promise of turbines going onto his land, he would have had to walk off the land during that drought from a few years ago. He wouldn't have been able to afford to stay. People had to destock. Yes, you destock, but then you've got to have the money to restock. Whereas he sort of agreed, yes, there was great community consultation in that area from the business that was putting in the wind turbines. They talked to the farmers and they rented his land, I guess, and started paying him for the land even before they'd actually constructed the turbines, which are up and running now. And obviously he's sort of continuing to have that income from it as well. But that's the income that allowed him and his family farm, been in the family for generations, to stay and to continue farming. So it meant a win-win for him, and that goes for a lot of farmers around. And the energy companies, the wind turbine companies, are really working with communities these days, and it's really beneficial for the communities to be a part of that consultation. And there are lots of winners. There's not many losers out of wind turbines, I believe. And certainly up around Crookham where we go, they're just amazing, and a great place to have the wind farm is around these areas. It's perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, and the income, as you say, it's a regular income, which gives farmers security. There's not those ups and downs that come with having a good season or a bad season.
That's exactly right, and it's really important when we know that droughts are going to be a little bit more regular, and the last one is horrific, and farmers were walking off the land or just devastated, and they're still recovering, a lot of them. But with an income, the steady income you can still continue to farm is just a bonus.
Yeah, and we're talking now about wind turbines, but before you also mentioned that there's also some large solar projects that are going on, and that there was an interesting and unexpected kind of bonus that has come with farmers having some of these large solar farms on their properties with the condensation. Is that right? Yeah,
it was amazing. Right out west around Dubbo area, they found during the drought they have huge solar arrays on their land, and and they can still run their sheep underneath. But what they found in the drought, overnight there'd often be condensation gather on the panels, which would drip and allow grass to grow between the panels, which allowed the sheep to get some feed. They probably still had to supplement, but that's a real win, isn't it? Not only is it allowing the sheep to feed on green feed, but it's good for the soil to be having cover over it as well. And this, if it hadn't been the solar panels, it just would have been a bare paddock.
Wow.
And very little, if any, condensation would have happened. So there are interesting wins that you get along the way, I think, when you make a change.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So whereabouts are we now? Are we on the north side of Goulburn, or?
Yes, we're on the north side of Goulburn. We're heading towards Crookwell, out through the ranges here, and we go up onto I don't know what you call it, a tableland of Crookwell.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's up high. And this is a big sheep area, huge sheep, fine merino. And when we actually get to Crookwell, obviously there are some potato farms around, which are very well known as well.
Yeah, fantastic. And yeah, I'd like to learn a bit more about yourself and how you've ended up getting so engaged in politics. So can you tell us about your upbringing? Did you grow up in this area, and your career as a teacher, and then ultimately how you got involved in politics?
My dad was a teacher, and he was a teacher at a one-teacher school out at Alina Siding, which is just outside of West Wollongong, where I was born. So we spent all our growing up years out in Western New South Wales in very small communities, and sometimes larger ones too. So my dad, being moving around a lot and being a teacher, I guess, and my mother having done a lot of dancing in her previous careers, we ended up being very much part of the artistic community or the church community or whatever community group was going in all of the areas that we went to.
Mm-hmm.
It was a way of getting in and getting to know people quickly and making some really great connections along the way. So us kids, as we grew up, knew that being part of our community, whether it was sport, through church activities, community groups, whatever, was a really important thing. And I think it stayed with all of us as children as we've grown up and moved around. So my dad was a teacher. I was never going to be a teacher, but I ended up being a teacher and trained in special education and worked in country areas, in more city areas, and ending up down at Wollongong and then Picton, and then down here at Goulburn in the two high schools down here in Goulburn. So special education started off with students with intellectual disabilities, very different now. I worked for many years with students with physical disabilities, setting up them into mainstream schools so that they weren't excluded from mainstream education. It's a great way of getting to know your community when you're working with people with disabilities, families, and all their connections. Coming down into Goulburn, it was very more into working with students on the autistic spectrum, students with behavioural disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, emotional disorders, and a huge range of difficulties in between. But all of those kids are supported by their community. The support that I had as a teacher, head teacher, working in these towns, meant that I could get kids out to work experience, to organisations that were ready to help them and work with them. So it really showed me how community is there for everybody, not just for the person that can go out and sing or whatever. So that really reinforced my idea about how important community is for all of us.
Like, I actually grew up in a small town as well in central Queensland, and I live in the city now, and I've lived in the city for a long time, but one thing about these small regional towns in Australia is just how strong a sense of community is in these towns. When you are in a small town a long way from anywhere else, the community really bonds together and everybody knows everyone in town, and I think that's something that's often underestimated in politics, is how quickly word of mouth can travel in small towns, and the value of word of mouth and the value of reputation. And I think, like, we've heard about this incredible community independence group in the electorate of Indi, which Cathy McGowan was the first representative of, I guess, and then Helen Haynes has continued that on. But really, that's a group that has emerged from this community, all through word of mouth, all through kitchen table conversations. I think that we're going to see more and more of this happen across Australia over the coming years.
Yeah, and I think that's the power of it, that connection, that networking with communities, and giving people an opportunity to talk. I know we went to the Goldman Show with my stand the other day, and people who might not want to come to a formal kitchen table chat were there, and they were happy to come up and talk, and being asked what their opinions were was so powerful for them. They could actually, somebody's asking me what I think about this. They're not asking me to buy anything. They're just asking me, what do I reckon about this, that, and everything, these things. And that was really empowering for those people. And we ended up having some pretty long conversations, but really enlightening for me to hear, well, there's a whole lot of other things that I didn't know about that are going on for people. And I'm finding that when I go up and meet people up and down the electorate, right up to Silverdale, up into all the outskirts of the city almost, then their issues are different up there. But there are some very general ones about integrity and transparency that people are really, really strongly feeling about. But being able to then to share those local issues back with other people down this way is really empowering for those people, that their stories and awareness is being spread.
Yep.
And just knowing that they're in their community up there, but there's communities down here that care about what's happening up there as well. So, and I think maybe it's more difficult in the city, and I have lived in the city, but certainly that sense of community is so strong in Hume, and I'm sure in in other regional centres as well. And it's something that we have to really hold on to. So when we see lots of development coming in willy-nilly, we need to make sure that they become part of the community, and we don't turn into a city, I suppose. But that regional sense of rural area is very strong in Hume, up and down.
Yeah, fantastic. And I think I've heard similar things a lot over the last few months doing these drives and interviewing quite a few of the independent candidates, and time again I'm hearing how people are saying that the people in the community are just so glad to be actually asked what their opinion is. And I think the reason that people are find it so refreshing is because I think the major parties have taken it for granted so long that they're just going to win the seat, and there hasn't been that engagement there from the major parties at all. So people are probably quite shocked when they get asked those questions.
Yeah, and look, one of the things that people are a bit annoyed about is that trying to actually get connection with whoever their local representative is. And they've asked me, what will you do different? And I said, well, I'll make sure every month I'm coming round to all of the communities, and we'll have a meet, whether it's in the park or whether it's in a cafe, wherever, but wherever anybody can come and ask questions, ask me what I'm doing, and being very transparent on my website about what I'm voting on, why I'm voting on this, and consulting with the community, because that's what people want. They actually want to have a say, and they want to often debate these issues too and find out more about it. I've had so many emails from lots of people, in the electorate since our launch last year, asking me, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Or I've got this problem, how can I solve that? And those conversations are so important, knowing that those people have been recognised, they've been listened to, somebody's trying to find a solution or suggest things that they could do, and asking them to keep in touch, because I am a people's person. I think I like talking to people, and I think people enjoy that, and being able to actually express their feelings to someone who's listening is so important.
Yeah, and I guess that's really how democracy is supposed to be. We've kind of forgotten.
That's right, in the forum where everybody got together and had a chat.
Yeah.
So I think we need to go back to those days. Can't go back completely, I know, but we need to be taking into consideration there are a lot of people out there have got a lot to offer, a lot of expertise in the community, and they can guide and suggest what can happen in our community.
Yeah.
Let's do some filming here. We come back to the roadworks. And we can see on the hills over there just a patch of the
starting to see some of these massive wind turbines in the background now. I actually had no idea that there were these massive wind farms outside of Goulburn.
Oh really?
Yeah.
You see them on the way. There's some at on the other side of Lake George, Lake Bathurst area, and down in Collector area. But here as we get closer, we might even get to see the tiny little ones that were first put up many, many years ago as the Crookwell Wind Farm. I don't know, we'd have to go back to probably, I don't know, even early 80s, late 70s perhaps.
Yeah.
You have to correct me on that one. But literally they look like those little fans kids play with in comparison to these huge ones. But I find them really aesthetically pleasing. They make beautiful shapes, and you know, when it's winter and it's foggy and you see them rising up, it's almost surreal. It's very abstract art, I think.
Yeah, I remember I was fortunate enough to do a year exchange program in Germany in the year 2000, so just over 20 years ago now. And I remember driving down the Autobahn and just seeing these massive wind turbines everywhere, and just as you say, I was in awe of this huge wind farm that's just literally pulling energy from thin air. And yeah, it's so great to finally start seeing these wind farms being built here in Australia as well. And I know the Victorian government's recently announced a massive offshore wind farm as well. I think 2 gigawatt offshore wind farm. It sounds like things are really starting to ramp up now.
I think so, and I mean, offshore ones means that those people that don't like the look of them aren't so offended, and you know, I guess that's a win as well. And again, it's going back to the win-win for our farmers here, though. It hasn't meant that a lot of them can stay on the land, and the communities have really benefited from the money that is distributed by the wind companies.
Yeah.
So there's winners everywhere, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were mentioned before, but I'll mention it again, that a few months ago I saw a tweet from a guy in Norway he'd said that there was so much wind energy coming off the North Sea wind farms into the Norwegian grid that it dropped the spot price of electricity down to 0.1 cents per kilowatt hour.
Wow.
And that he just fully charged his electric car for like 10 cents. So I think the other thing that's coming is really cheap energy.
Well, and cheap fuel, you know, like it's
cheap fuel,
$2 plus now just for E10 these days. So that's just 1 litre. If you can charge for 10 cents your whole car, there's no competition,
no.
Is there? Yes, you have to get the car, but that's where we need our government to lead the way and give incentives, to promote, you know, they can't give everybody an electric car. We're not asking for that. We're asking for some ideas about round incentives.
Yep.
Let's take the electric vehicle tax off to start off with. That will make it a little bit better for some people. And just promoting them more. And wondering, I'm not sure how far the electric charging stations from the federal government have gone either, but making sure that people are secure in knowing that yes, we can get power.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was just chatting to one of my mates in Central Queensland. He called me a couple of days ago, and he said that earlier that day he'd gone into the petrol station to fill up his car, and that he had to ask the lady behind the counter if she'd got the price right, because he was just so gobsmacked with having to pay like $150 to fill up his tank. And I think now with the price of petrol so high, the demand for electric vehicles is higher than it's ever been now. And now we really need leadership from the government. So now we are coming up to these wind turbines, Penny.
This is Pejar Dam. We just come past here, and here are some of the Crookwell Wind Farm turbines up on our right, and you might be able to see some on the left as well. So Charlie Prell is the person that owns this property up here, and he is the chairman of the Farmers for Climate for Action, and he's been a great proponent of wind farms and wind turbines, and it's been a battle for him, but now I'm pretty much sure he's got his whole project up and running now, finally, after many years. And there's been a lot of dispute about whether or not they should go up in the community, but I think the benefits are going to outweigh. He already employs people to look after the turbines, so there's a win-win straight there. Suddenly more jobs and opportunity in the area.
Absolutely. And pretty amazing driving past these wind turbines turbines, massive wind turbines in an electric vehicle. Really feel like, the future is here.
Absolutely, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And when we get up closer, they are so huge, they're enormous.
Yeah.
And some people might say they are a blight on the landscape, but I tell you what, I'd rather have 50 of them rather than driving through an open coal mine area as you do up north in the Hunter area.
Oh,
No thanks.
and some of those open cut coal mines in the Hunter, they're just massive scars on what would otherwise be just really
Beautiful farmland.
beautiful farmland. Yeah, just being destroyed unnecessarily. From my engineering days, from what I understand, the bigger the cross-sectional area, you're actually increasing the amount of energy squared. So that's why they really try to make them so big, because they get a much bigger increase in the amount of energy they can pull. And yeah, it's quite ironic that we're in the electorate of the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction, who has resisted the transition to renewable energy for so long, but literally 15 minutes out of town, and we have these massive wind turbines generating just incredible amount of energy.
And it's one of the best places in the southern hemisphere for us to have a hub like this, because of the opportunities for the transmission lines that go to Lithgow, to the power station. So it's a win-win really for Goulburn and for the Hume area.
Yeah.
If only we could have the initiative or the incentive and
The leadership.
The leadership, leadership's probably a good one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just the initiative to say, let's go for it, guys. Let's not be scared of the future.
Yeah.
Let's embrace it. We talk about, technology will solve all our problems. Here's the technology up and running now.
Yeah.
And we know that batteries and all of that sort of technology is improving as we go. We don't have to wait for it.
Exactly. And I think that the government has tried to suggest or frame it as though we are still waiting for technology, but no, the technology is here. The goal now, the objective now, is to roll that technology out as fast as possible, and to help communities get projects like these up and running.
Yeah, because the community consultation that companies realise they have to do has really so much improved, so that people are on board from the beginning and getting benefits from it in their own community.
We're seeing with a lot of the independent candidates that climate change is a big issue, but also integrity in politics is also another big issue. So I want to get your thoughts on how you think integrity in politics in Australia can improve.
Well, first of all, I will tell you that is the prime thing. People are saying they will change their vote because they are wanting integrity, transparency and honesty in politics. And they will say to me, are you supporting a federal ICAC? And I say, absolutely yes, that's my prime number one, and I would want it to have a good federal ICAC by the end of this year that actually has really good integrity as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they say, yep, you've got my vote, because that's what they're looking for. People are looking around and seeing there's so much that goes on that they're not aware of. There's money put aside from a budget that nobody knows what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
Those sort of things, and dishonesty amongst people, that is their key point of wanting change.
Yep.
So that is such a huge thing, and I know that even when we were talking to community groups back in 2020, that was one of the big things as well, that integrity needing to be back in politics. Another one that comes up a lot, because a lot of the people I'm meeting with, not all, no, a good majority I guess, are women, and they are demanding better services for women. And certainly when you look at the disasters that have been happening in the last year around Brittany Higgins, Grace Tame, all of those sorts of things, they are looking for that Kate Jenkins report to be implemented in full, like now, not sort of waiting for another year or so.
Yeah.
They want an HR department in Parliament, not having to go to the financial or Treasury to tell them that you're being assaulted.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking for that equal pay, equal rights, I guess, for women, in a way that is going to benefit our whole economy. I know I've spoken to small business people that have said that their best workers have had to stop work. They cannot afford the childcare, so they can't come in today
Yep.
because they cannot afford the cost of childcare. They are the best one businesswoman had to really curtail her business because we need to have childcare that is really accessible, and we need to make it free and actually bring it back to everybody so everybody has an equal opportunity to work.
Countries like Norway, they do have free childcare, and I watched a lecture by former Prime Minister of Norway, Jens Stoltenberg, and he said that Norway's families policy, which provides free childcare from age 1 as well as like after school free care, that policy, when you compare it to Italy, who doesn't have that policy, it means that like there's something like 3 or 4% increase in female participation in the workforce. He said that 3 or 4% increase in female participation in the workforce contributes more to the Norwegian economy than the entire Norwegian oil industry.
That is amazing. That is amazing. And look, there's even, it's this one here.
Yep, I'll just give you, that's all right.
And you know, there's other benefits too. Like as a teacher and talking to primary schools, we sort of say, well, why can't kids, when they come into Year 7, a lot better off? You know, they just seem to be a bit behind these days, a lot of them.
Yeah.
And then we hear from the primary schools that because parents haven't been able, have had to go to work, or they've not been able to go to work, the kids are coming way behind when they even start off kindergarten.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's a way of really bringing into line, making sure all of our kids have the best opportunity and providing it for everybody, not just for those that can afford it.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you getting a lot of volunteers? I know I've heard some of these other independent campaigns, they're just getting huge numbers of volunteers.
Yeah, we have a website that you can go and support, volunteer, donate, and the number of volunteers are huge. At the moment we are organising door knocking. We've got plenty of volunteers for that. People come to events and they say, I'll give out flyers, I'll do this, and so yeah, we have a lot of volunteers, hundreds, and they're coming out of the woodwork to volunteer.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think like it gives people a real sense of purpose getting involved in a community campaign like this, especially after so many years of not having your voice heard, to finally have a channel where you can make a difference. It must give people a big sense of purpose.
Yeah, and what I think about like volunteers, they like to be used, and so they like to have that sense of not just purpose but of actually contributing.
Yeah.
And they all come with different skills, and some excellent skills that they can then utilise, which helps helps the whole campaign.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think it's a couple of different things, but it also gives those people a purpose and a chance to use their skills.
One of the other things that electric vehicles are really good for, which isn't often talked about, is fuel security, right? So Australia has over 20 million petrol and diesel cars on the road, and about 90% of our fuel for these cars, for our transport, is imported, and it's coming through just a couple of shipping lines through Southeast Asia, and basically our entire economy depends on just those two or three shipping lines.
That's right.
And there's a lot of tension in the world at the moment, and that's quite a high risk for our fuel security. And often the government, especially the Energy Minister Angus Taylor, they'll talk about increasing our fuel security by increasing our fuel reserves, but they never talk about the opportunities that come with electric vehicles and actually getting off fuel, because with electric vehicles you can power them off homegrown Aussie renewable energy, which is a dramatic improvement to our fuel security and our national security.
Well, the national security in particular, that's what we're talking about at the moment in our news feeds so much now. And if you only have to cut those fuel supplies, and I think we've only got, is it 9 or 12 days? It's not very much that's actually on the ocean coming to us. Well, if something stops that, we run out. I mean, I'm old enough to remember the old rationing days where you could only go on certain days depending where your number plate was. So I mean, I remember those days, and we all got through them. Was
that the fuel crisis in the 70s?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I remember my mum and dad lining up for the fuel, and so do we go back to that? And I mean, people are so dependent on their cars in Australia, not just in the country but everywhere, because our public transport's not fantastic, is it?
Yeah.
So we lose that ability to travel, then people are losing their work, they can't go see their loved ones. It's a
everything grinds
stage.
to a halt.
It does.
Really,
It does.
And I know, the demand for electric vehicles has gone through the roof just in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
right. Great.
So even like for Tesla, the demand has gone up 100%. So the demand has basically doubled in the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
And the lead time now, it was only a few weeks. If you ordered the Tesla, you'd get it in a few weeks or a month or so. It's now gone out to 7 months.
Oh, wow.
That's how many people are
waiting.
now wanting electric vehicles.
I know there's 2 guys in Goulburn. They're waiting for their Tesla. Now, they ordered it some time ago. So, yeah, they're hanging out to get one.
Yeah, they probably won't have to wait 7 months. They'll probably get theirs pretty soon.
Hopefully, yeah, because they did order a while ago.
Yeah. Thanks very much for coming for a drive today, Penny. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and it was amazing to see those massive wind turbines just churning out incredible amounts of energy here in Hume. And I just wanted to wish you all the best for the campaign leading up to the election.
Thank you very much, Daniel. It's been really exciting to be in a Tesla and to feel the power, and it's always a pleasure to show people the wind turbines because they are so specky and they are doing such a lot for our energy and reducing our emissions, and I think we all need to be on board with them. So thanks for coming and agreeing to come up to the Crookwell area. Thank you.
No worries, my pleasure.